All right, I think we can get started. Thanks again for everyone who's made time to be a part of today's webinar. Well, I must say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us. From around the world. Uh, a warm welcome to our panel discussion, How AI is Transforming HR. I'm Rohini, your moderator for today, and I'm excited to lead this engaging conversation about AI transformative impact on HR landscape. I'm just going to take quick 2 minutes to let people know what is AI certs, right? I'm sure most of you would be new new to AI certs. So AI Certs provides role-based AI and blockchain certifications designed to promote lifelong learning. Our goal is to help companies build smarter workforces, adapt to change, and drive growth, all while working towards our ambitious mission to certifying 1 billion people. So I'm going to pause here for a second and quickly, share my screen. There's a very short video. I'm going to share the link as well. It's a YouTube. Link. So I request everybody to just have a look. It's just going to give you a little bit of more information about AI certs.
Constant is change. Staying ahead means constantly adapting, evolving, and growing. You need the right skills to thrive. Artificial intelligence and blockchain are revolutionizing everything we do, from how we work, create, and solve problems, to how we secure data and build trust in a digital world. Do you have the skills to thrive in this new era of AI? To stay ahead, you need the right tools and knowledge. But with so much information available, where do you start? AI Certs empowers you to equip yourself for the future with industry-recognized, role-based certifications in AI and blockchain. Whether you're an individual looking to upskill and advance your career, or a business seeking to empower your workforce with cutting-edge AI and blockchain expertise, AI Certs is your trusted partner. Our certifications are crafted by a team of leading industry experts, ensuring they align with the latest trends and real-world demands. We understand that everyone learns differently. Our flexible learning options allow you to study whenever and wherever it works best for you. With a tech background or without one, our comprehensive range of role-based certifications equip you with the in-demand skills you need to succeed. Stand out in the job market with recognized AI and blockchain credentials. Leverage the new technology to become more efficient, innovative, and impactful. Help your company thrive in the AI era. AI Certs, empowering individuals and businesses to lead the AI revolution.
Well, thank you so much for your patience. I'm going to stop sharing and share the link with all of you on the chat box. Well, I'm going to now move quickly to introduce our speakers for today. We're definitely privileged to have two outstanding experts with us today who bring invaluable insights and experience to this discussion. Firstly, welcome 𝐘𝐨𝐿𝐻, a Senior Vice President of Product and Digital Transformation at PeopleStrong. 𝐘𝐨𝐿𝐻 has been at the forefront of HR innovation using AI to reimagine employee experiences and drive meaningful transformations. Welcome Sandeep Singh, entrepreneur and former SVP of Product Management and Automation at 𝐻𝐞𝐽. Sandeep is a visionary and in HR tech with expertise in automation and delivering scalable, impactful solutions. Well, today we'll explore how AI is reshaping HR practices from enhancing employee experiences to improving retention strategies. Our panelists will share real world experiences or examples addressing these changes and highlight the future opportunities AI brings to HR. We'll wrap up the live, wrap up with the live, excuse me, on that live Q&A. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout. We have a chat box. Make it interactive. We want you to ask questions, and we'll definitely address it at the end of the session. Well, let's just get started with the segment one, which is understanding AI's impact, right? So, Dakshdeep, I'm going to start with you. The question would be, how AI is currently reshaping HR practices. Could you share an example that highlights AI's impact on improving the employee experience?
Sure. Thank you, Rohini. I think from my perspective, there are four key areas from the HR side of it, which AI is impacting and perhaps in the time to come would create much more impact. One would be HR operations, wherein people today imagine automation of your routine administrative tasks. Right. That's one. The second is it will impact your employee experience and your engagement. Um there are scenarios wherein you have AI assistants or bots who are providing your support to common HR queries that employees have. Even if you look at People Strong, we have our own chatbot called as Genie. We call that as a work-life assistant for all our customers who work with us. Then the third biggest area of an impact is from a recruitment and hiring perspective. You have a lot of tools today coming in who are helping you scale, who are helping you fasten up the entire recruitment cycle. The chatbots today are handling initial candidate interactions and scheduling. You don't need actually any human intervention there. A big use case that also comes together, and that something that we also use internally within our product, is assisting by using NLP uh, and helping the users to write and optimize job descriptions. And the last one would be typically on, I would say, say employee onboarding and development. You have a lot of focus today comes on the skills, right? People hire for skills nowadays, and that's how the world is moving. So in the overall AI schema, if you just imagine yourself wherein your learning recommendations are coming basis your skill gaps or your career goals, or you are able to analyze and map certain tools in terms of how the employee maps to an organization need. So I think these are key four areas which I feel that would for sure be impacted by AI in time to come.
That's amazing to know, Dakshdeep. Sandeep, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah. So, thanks, Daksh. I think a lot of good examples that you have given. And see, currently the examples that we are seeing from AI predominantly in the generation field is something which we are seeing because it generates good kind of content, and wherever content generation is needed, or even that kind of an example that is already in play. I think in the next 3-4 years, there is going to be a lot of work on examples which we are going to imagine. And currently, most of us are currently used to a workflow based example. So I'll say, for example, resume parsing and ranking. Right. Currently, all the ATS tools can parse your resume, but the kind of ranking is pretty static in nature. And we have seen examples where sometimes very good candidates are missed from a static ATS based ranking algorithm. So I can foresee, AI powered tools. For example, there is already some impact on the LinkedIn talent insights, etc., which is able to analyze thousands of resumes, and the algorithm is something which is changing, which can understand different keywords or different skills that different people might have. That is one. Chatbots is something which Daksh also talked about. I think when the entire recruitment experience is something which most companies want to, that is the first starting point when candidates interact with the company. So that is a place where AI can play a role, where it can answer questions on culture, it can answer questions on way of working, etc. All of it. Uh, Workflow automation, for example, there are a lot of workflows which HR typically works on. For example, after onboarding an employee, triggering orientation, coordinating with different people, I think all of it can be decently automated through AI or agentic AI platforms that are going to come in. Payroll and benefits, probably, though those are pretty deterministic in nature, but we'll have to see what happens on that. Background verification, uh, an environment which I have seen with zoomed in way in the last 3 years. I think So background verification is whatever a candidate is claiming that he or she has, is it actually true, right? And that is something which used to be a very, very manual process, and people used to check that. Lot of work already on pre-generative AI has already happened there through classic AI BERT models, etc. For example, OCR of a document, extraction, instant verification, for example, say matching my photograph with the identification document after the identification document has been checked with the source, confirming my education whether it matches with the source or not, employment details, whatever I have claimed has matched or not. So all that can be done. It can, for example, in the future also trigger automatic reference checks. So it can contact the referee, get the response, and those questions, etc., can also be far more nuanced to get a better understanding of the candidate. And then, for example, create a more detailed report which can then be given. So, you can get a gist. Wherever rule-based workflows are there, this process can be far more evolving and far more nuanced. Yeah.
I think very beautifully touched upon the automation. The AI plays a great, I think, benefit in terms of HR automations. I think you've spoken so well about it. With
I
this
think
note, I
from
also
what
wanted,
this
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, what this Sandeep added, I think people should know that this is one area which is constantly evolving. We were in the age wherein
Yeah.
we used to have typically workflow automations that people call it, or RPAs, right? You moved from RPAs to machines which were intelligent enough or can learn. I think the world is also moving towards agents from chatbots, typically, wherein people can truly understand the context and ideally respond to you basis your context. I think that's the key thing, how it will happen also in the future, rather than just doing repetitive tasks. I think it's more of doing contextual tasks or being able to perform. So just imagine that, let's say three of us are doing a same process, but then the response on the AI bot, or you call it as an agent, ideally is very specific for you, for me, as well as for Sandeep. I think that's where the world is going on.
Yeah, I observe like on a daily basis, there's so much of improvement and advancements with the existing tools as well, right? I think we are moving at a very fast pace. Well, that also takes me to the next part about, we talk about enhancing employee experience and retention. So, both of you have highlighted AI's potential to enhance employee engagement. Could you share some specific ways AI tools can personalize the employee journey and address retention challenges?
Yeah.
Sure, Sandeep, you want to go ahead?
So, yeah, I'll go ahead. If you actually think about employee experience, right, currently it's a pretty broken field, because, and it's not to blame anyone, but I think most of HR's job is so caught up in day-to-day work that practically sending a survey and getting responses in a graphical format is the way to actually measure the what is the feedback in the company. So I think that is something which is going to change big time. So I foresee a lot of uh, chats that are far more nuanced. For example, if someone is giving 555 on a particular parameter, what is something which he or she is liking, versus someone who is giving low score, what has happened with that person. It see, every feedback is is coming from a context, whether it is work related, the reporting manager related, sometimes environment related, money related, all of it. That is where it comes in, rather than just giving 5 bullet points. So I think, so surveys will become far more intelligent, and that is where I think AI currently can also play a major role, because it generates automatically. It can understand your response and frame the next question, albeit doing it in a certain time period. So that is where I feel. Plus, it can also correlate with, what is the attrition that is happening in the company currently. It can check the Glassdoor scores also, and then, create a more coherent understanding of what are people actually saying, what do they actually feel, what is showing in data, match it with the attrition numbers, and then present it. Ki what is the sentiment in my company? So that is one. Second, I think you talked about how do you address retention. I think Retention, while it's a big topic, one place which I see again very static in nature is your career growth path, right? Most companies in their HRMS, they have either a vertical career growth path or a horizontal that you can jump. And it is, again, vertical is fairly fixed. Okay, sometimes it is time related, sometimes it is rating related, etc. Uh, while horizontal is something which most people now want to try out different areas which they wanted to do. Uh, Most companies will say, okay, I will create it for you. I think that is where understanding, okay, what is the skill that this person currently has, what are the gaps, what is the alignment, what are the behavioral aspects that this person has to build, and then suggesting learning recommendations, and then keeping a tab whether that person has actually achieved it. I think so. Those dynamic career growth plans is something which HRMS tools will have to create. I think the entire HRMS, by the way, will change significantly. It's a pretty static tool, primarily used for filling attendance or, applying your chutti or downloading your salary slip or, few more works. I think it has to become far more nuanced and it has to help HR in all these tasks. And I think that is where I feel a lot of new areas are going to get opened up. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think these are some, on-ground facts that you have touched upon. Dakshti, please add your inputs here.
I think Sandeep covered it pretty well. Nothing much left out, but I think key
Yeah.
couple of key areas for sure. Prediction of people who are exiting or perhaps retention. You can have data points which are understanding the trends of people's leave behavior, or perhaps the leave behavior that follows up just after your performance cycles, checking out how the performance from a continuous basis is moving for an employee. uh, the system can also understand in terms of the communication pattern that the employees are doing, right? That's how I think retention is one big area that almost a lot of organizations face, and nobody wants to lose on to their top talent. Second, for sure, because the
True.
world, the way, and I think as a part of the first question, the idea was that the world is moving towards a skill economy, right? We were, I think, the where we started out were typically jobs. It moved on to roles. There is still a mix and match that's happening between roles and skills. Something in the future that is foreseeable is mapping to skills rather than still going on to the role side of it. And I think um, that's where those specific recommendation in terms of your career paths or in terms of your career development for an employees, that's something that's something where AI will create a strong impact. So for example, um, say take an example of somebody who's doing a customer support kind of a role, and if the person has good, say, analytical skills, or let's say communication skills, just think about a system which comes and tells them that that's your predictive role, or that's your growth path that I foresee for you within the organization, even if you want to do a vertical movement or if you want to do a lateral movement. And then the employee can ideally pick up those respective areas of improvement or learning and can choose those career paths. So I think that's clearly something which AI gets on board, which is personalization to that specific individual.
I get it. I think that's a great point. Well, HR is nothing but human resource and it has very much human in it. So now my next question is how can HR teams strike the right balance between leveraging predictive insights that AI would support and maintain a human touch as well? What do you think the world would be?
So I think three things. While people, I work with a lot of customers day in day out. That's a part of the job that I do. I think what I've seen is people are a bit reluctant. They still fear that they'll lose on to what they are doing today. People are still not very clear in terms of what's the path if these things come in, right? So I think three key areas which people should keep in mind. One, they should be clear that AI comes as an enhancement and not as a replacement. Second is obviously there should be clear boundaries that should be aligned as to where AI is being used, where there is an importance of in human interventions. And I think third and foremost thing is, I think it's about training the HR team to drive the overall integration, right? I mean, with this skepticism that comes across, I think it's a need to develop those skills, to understand those AI insights and translating them into human actions. The idea is, uh, we have to train the HR teams to understand as to how AI is complementing them, while still keeping it in mind that they are there to assist and drive complex things. However, the human element retains with themselves. I think when I said, say, use of AI more as an enhancement and not as a replacement, I think the idea is you should have, say, uh, say human HR partners who can use these insights and take more meaningful and personalized conversation with employees. Right now, if you see an AI can tell you that the person seems to be disengaged. All right, the person seems to be disengaged basis certain trends, basis certain actions. However, the conversation that has to be driven, the genuineness in terms of conversation can only happen when you do when you ideally do a human touch, right? Similarly, while obviously systems can assist you with those outcomes and those parameters, be it AI, be it automation on that side of it, but I think there are still a lot of sensitive conversations that you want to drive in, right? In terms of like performance issues, or if there are personal challenges. Now, the AI will still tell you that the person is disengaged, but will not be able to tell you whether it was a personal challenge or a performance issue, why it happened, what the employee went through. And similarly, I think one should also realize that any system, and that's a fact, any system is as good as the data that is fed into it, right? And the biggest thing that comes across is an AI is still a system that has been created by humans. It learns basis it inputs, right? So I think the biggest catch here is, how do you train that AI engine to be as smart as a human being by avoiding the biases. And these biases ideally are something that people should be very careful about. And it's not an intentional bias. Now, I've let's say I'm trying to teach my bot on something on recruitment, or say profile screening. Now, coincidentally, the data that I've fed in, let's say it only talks about selection of people, and coincidentally, let's say 80% of them were females, right? Now, you haven't done it because you didn't have the other data with you. You only had a specific set of data on which you are training the system. Now, what the system realizes and infers is that perhaps with this organization, within these set of parameters, I think what works is a female. It may, in that subconscious aspect of you to train, may start rejecting good, valid male profiles as well, right? So I think that's something that people should know while they are entering into this world, but they should for sure keep in mind the training aspect.
Absolutely. I think things that humans can do, AI will never be able to. Sandeep, do you have any points to add here, or should we move to the next segment?
I think we can move to the next one. I think
Perfect.
the
All
Daksh has
right.
covered all.
So, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, I'd like to, quote a very famous line these days that people use. AI won't replace humans, but humans using AI will replace humans who don't. So that's like a very catchy line that's running everywhere here about, AI. So the next segment is ethical AI and implementation challenges. So for this, Sandeep, if you could, address AI adoption in HR often raises concerns about bias and
Yeah.
transparency. From your experience, how can organizations ensure they are using AI responsibly and ethically in their HR processes?
I think it's a excellent question. Probably there would be, while this field has actually moved so quickly, and still it is moving at such a pace. I think ethics and the entire reliability is something which unfortunately is being overlooked. I foresee, in fact, in the next few years, there would be regulations, probably at country level, at UN level, also on what are the areas in which AI should not go in, what are the kind of responses that are not to be spoken about. I think that is something which will definitely happen at a country level, so at a global level, country level, and then at a regulation level or regulator level also. So that is something which is definitely going to happen, and there would be ethics officers in most companies. So while AI might cut some jobs, it will definitely add there. Now, if you actually look at what are the reasons why this happens, I think first big reason is the data. And there is a very nice paper which was actually written in Google, which basically talks about, data cascades and high stakes AI. So I think if the audience please note it down, data cascades and high stakes AI, please search for it. It basically talks about everyone, wants to do the model work. No one wants to work on the data. I think this is where AI is very, very different from core IT companies. It needs lot of initial work on first what is the problem that I am solving, and secondly the data set, getting the right data set for it. Unfortunately, that is where most biases come in, and that is where most human biases come in. In fact, you would be knowing that the entire open AI, the entire models have got trained by, I think, lakhs of people working in Africa. And there's a company called Scale AI, which basically is again $1 billion company, which was getting the entire internet. So internet they had scraped, but what is the area? What are the things that should go in the model? So a lot of people were working on it. So data is the first part, getting the right data which is diverse and representative, and then the HR team has to ensure that they are testing it across different demographics, for women, for people who are working in different regions of the country or globally. So whether my this particular chatbot or whether this particular survey tool which I am deploying, whether it will work across geographies or not. And then lot of pre-processing, post-processing work has to be done. So first part is data. Second part is doing lot of audits and monitoring. So getting third parties, for example, inside the company, and they are doing independent audits, getting feedbacks from the users in case even one incident is found. um, the third thing which you should definitely, when if the HR team is taking a tool from say a AI developer or a AI company, they should get the explainable framework from that company. So it basically talks about, I asked this question because the user did this. At least that should be maintained in the log. Still, there will be 1 in 1,000 cases where I currently see issues would happen, and which is where the fourth part comes in. I think every company who is deploying AI models, whether it is for the customer or for your partners, like if you have retailers or if you have distributors, if you have vendors, or for internal employees, it should be a diverse committee called AI ethics committee, which should have people from different functions as a part of that, and every single AI ethics incident should come to it. Probably in the future, I maybe boards also may need to have that, but definitely at least companies should start forming this committee. And any incident, whether it is a customer reported incident, there have been cases where in US where a particular airline had deployed uh, AI based bot or a agent, and it beyond a certain point it started criticizing the company and started saying that this airline is shit and you should not take it. So these things will happen because one big problem which has still not got solved in AI despite billions going into it is called hallucination. So beyond a point, it starts behaving erratically. It starts in the human word lying or start giving responses which are gibberish. It happens in certain cases. People are trying to create rules, but still there is no framework which can overcome it. And that is where this committee should come in and then have some way of filtering it out, taking action quickly, because while a human agent or a human can also make certain mistakes, but if a bot makes such mistakes, people can take a screenshot and then post it on Twitter, post it on LinkedIn. And that is where I think this committee is something which is very much needed. And then over a period of time, this committee should form policies on how are they going to collect the data, how are they going to store the data, how is it going to be analyzed, what is covered, what is not covered, all of it. So I think this is something which I think every company should start working on it right now, have this committee in place, because everyone is using whether chat GPT or something for creating emails, for creating all of it. I think this committee should start looking at it. What are the different use cases that my company is working on? What is something which is okay, what is not okay? And then even the HR problems also they start addressing.
Absolutely. I think it's more from the responsibility perspective. I think every
And yeah,
organization,
one more point which I
yeah,
wanted to cover. I think this is
yeah.
where a lot of billion-dollar businesses will also get created. See, because if you think about humans, right, we love to be in control, and that is something which we all love. For example, कि यार I want कि मैं control में रहूं. I don't want to give it to anyone. I'll give you an example. Say tomorrow, AI agent, which say where I tell that AI agent, can you book a particular ticket for me from Delhi to Mumbai? It will go look at 4 travel websites, find the lowest price, etc., and then tell me. I will never want to give two things to that AI agent. I will never want to give my identity, my say PAN card or driving license or something. That is one. Secondly, my credit card or debit card, I will not want to give. Otherwise, so it will book the ticket because it can go wrong and it can cut, 2x of the money also. So that is where a lot of companies which can keep this data on blockchain and then use it will come in, and that is where people who are in this call, uh, it's a time to create a lot of human centric businesses which gives a lot of control to humans, while AI will do a fabulous job in certain areas which are beyond our capabilities, or which currently humans may not be able to do. But I think this is where a lot of businesses will get created also.
No, I think
Absolutely,
rightly
Sandeep.
said.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's a great.
I think what Sandeep was just
Yeah,
saying, just
Daksh.
adding up,
Yeah.
there are a couple of, if you check out a lot of countries in the EU as well as a few countries in the US, they already have this kind of a committee that's already formed. There are rules and regulations while being operated upon by AI. The data which gets fed in idly is reviewed thoroughly by that committee. People, there are
Yeah.
committees in terms of who review that none of the AI systems should be biased enough. I think that's already there. I think it's lacking a bit on the Asian countries now, but I think soon we should see this thing coming in.
I'm sure. I think a lot of companies would be working on it already. It's just about time, but it becomes famous where people notice it. Well,
Yes,
Dakshdeep, I have another question for you. As organizations increasingly integrate AI into HR systems, what do you see the biggest barriers to implementation? How can companies overcome these challenges effectively?
I think two or three challenges. One which I tried to cover up a bit in my last response as well. One is driving change management and the trust aspect of it. I think employees' skepticism about AI making decisions and perhaps impacting their career is way high today. Uh, that's the biggest thing that has to get overcome. Then another thing that comes across within this is HR teams' resistance to change. Not only for AI. I mean, AI is still I'll still call it as a second hurdle to be done. I think you go ahead to an organization who perhaps does a lot of processes manually or in an offline fashion or a semi-automated fashion, and if you give them uh, a tool, right, to say this is how, and honestly, that's how all HRMS players are running their business today, right? That's the productivity aspect that you want to drive in. The biggest thing that comes across is there is a resistance to change that comes across because again, people feel that what they are doing or they are habitual of doing, that's the best way, right? So I think that's the second thing. The third is, I mean, how do you try and overcome this? Is the idea is to build in transparency and a communication channel within the organization. You should tell them that, boss, this is where AI systems will play a role, and this is where the boundary is there, and that's where human intervention is needed. The idea and the second aspect in terms of driving those change, in terms of resistance to change, could be um, say involving the right stakeholders at the right time. I think a lot of organizations today feel that change management is something when a system goes live has to be done. I think the change management has to be done as early as when you start the workshops, so as you have the right set of stakeholders and you can create that impact within a larger organization. So that's one challenge ideally. The second challenge that comes across is typically on the cost and the ROI. Now, obviously, when you invest into an AI, it asks for an initial investment. Even if you go and take a paid version of a chat GPT, they charge you typically per hit, right? So the number of hits or the number of times you trigger the API to pull out a response, that's where the costing comes in. And obviously, there is a one-time cost of obviously procuring those AI engines as well. Until unless the exception is the company goes ahead and creates its own LLM. I mean, apart from that, ideally you'll end up using either a Claude or a Chat GPT or one of these, right? So that's one thing of it. The other is uh, people still struggle to figure out how do you evaluate employee experience, right? I think these couple of things comes across in terms of cost and ROI. But I mean, the way out is you should try out small. You should not go in a big side of it in terms of when you drive in things with AI. Now, just a quick thing, we just launched within People Strong our our first AI agent, which is nothing but contextualizing any document to your need. Now, the idea is you just browse a document. I mean, from a user perspective, I'm just telling you. So, if there is, let's assume that there is a state law. Now, it's a 100-page document. Just upload that out. Ask the bot anything. Ask the agent anything, and it will give you a contextualized answer basis what's there, right? So it's not about keying in an FAQ. It's just that I've just given a document. It's a random document. I can go ahead and ask now. But when we start doing these processes, right, at least we ensure that we don't go ahead and offer it at an open to all our customers. We are still at the stage of POCs, picked up 3 or 4 customers who are willing to experiment and understand this functionality. And I think that's where we also get that confidence that things will move ahead in the right fashion. The other idea is, I think one should develop good comprehensive matrices to capture both quantitative and qualitative benefits when you try and drive any such initiative. People always try and link ROI to money. There is a lot of impact on how. Now, let's say you had a website and which had jobs posted. If you're trying to make certain things, I think one of the key, a very nascent example could be, has the traffic increased on that website? Are you getting more leads from that page of yours if you have changed an ATS for yourself, right? Are people being more engaged? How are you now, let's say about an onboarding of an employee, how are you engaging those 60 to 90-day kind of a period that every employee goes through when he or she is switching the job? I think it's important to have specific KRs and evaluation criteria to identify the same. The third aspect would be, obviously there is and as I rightly said, you will find very few people in the HR world who are technically very competent. I mean, could be a harsh statement though, but I think numbers and tech is something that I have seen HRs are a bit skeptic about. I think these should be ideally the two besties. However, it doesn't happen. Um, so I think the first thing is the data that exists within the systems today, right, is all fragmented, inconsistent. I have seen when I go to customers and I ask them for implementation that help me with the data that we'll use to set up the system. Uh, and it's basic employee information, right? That within the construct of keeping personalization in space, obviously we are governed by contracts and stuff. Um, we ask for certain data points, right? That how the system will start functioning. And you won't believe the average time that an organization takes, apart from a very few handful of the organizations, is 40 to 45 days. Now, if you are using something, if you were driving a system, that typically means two things. One, you didn't have data, or you had data which was just splitted across multiple systems. And I think the best way that an organization should start doing it is, it's a very basic step. Before you enter into any of these digitization initiatives, you should do a thorough data cleanup and a standardization before any AI or any tech implementation. That should be ideally a homework. If you know that you are driving and you are entering into that path, this should be ideally a pre-work rather than saying once we sign up, once we enter, that's something then we'll do. And I think as Sandeep was also saying that we should have good data governance frameworks that help you support those AI integrations and stuff to ensure that the scenarios still remain unbiased and the systems are intelligent enough to respond to employees.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Daksh. I think it was a great insight to a lot of realistic issues, and your viewpoints were definitely beneficial. I did see a lot of attendees raising your hands. I request all of you to please use the Q&A option in your screen, and I'm definitely going to come to Q&A in the next 10 minutes. Just have the last question, last segment for the webinar. I'm going to reach out to the speakers and ask you questions. Please make notes in the chat board or the Q&A section. So the last segment, Sandeep and Daksh, it's future outlook. So looking ahead, how do you see AI transforming HR in next 5 years? Are there any emerging trends or innovations that HR professionals should start preparing from now?
Sure. So I think first point Sandeep covered out in one of his responses, which is taking care of privacy and ethics. I think that is something that will take the center stage in time to come. You'll find committees, you'll find laws coming in place in terms of how do you balance personalization and privacy along with these AI things coming in picture today. And obviously, there will be certain industry standards the way it has happened for a lot of countries in the European region as well as in the US. I think that's one. Second is, I think predictive HR would be a standard practice. Uh, Today, a lot of our actions that organizations do are typically related to descriptive analytics. All right. I mean, scenarios would have happened. You are just analyzing the data and trying to understand what went wrong at that time rather than predicting to say what may go wrong in the future to come. Right. So I think that's the second. And I think third one is personalization coming in across. It could be basis your learning, could be your career path, could be your benefits recommendation, or it could also be your real-time coaching and development suggestion basis your work patterns and performance.
Got it. Thank you so much, Daksh. You want to add a few points, Sandeep?
Yeah, I think, see, most points have been covered in the previous discussion that we had. I think Daksh also summarized beautifully, what are the things that people should do. Uh, First, I think anyone who is, whether from HR or any other function, you have to be curious about what is happening. That is point number one. Secondly, wherever you feel work is happening which can be automated or where lot of time is going, I think just think about it. See, because I'll give you an example. Let's imagine a 1,000 member organization does about $100 million of revenue. Probably because of the transformation that is happening, right? This may be done by a 250 member uh, organization in the future, because some bit of work will get automated, then some pricing will be impacted, volume will go up, all of it, but broadly it remains the same. So the people who are then going to be in the organization are going to be very, very important, right? I'll tell you why. First, they will be doing the kind of work which will not be automatable. B, or the cost of doing that work from AI will be very expensive. So you will want these people to be happy in the organization, to feel attached with the organization and work with the organization for a longer period of time, right? So HR's work will become more important, and the H aspect of the work, which is human connect, I think that is something which is going to be very important. And that will only happen when they free 80 to 90% of the time what they are doing currently from filling, making forms on HRMS or getting people onboarded or offboarded, and all of that. You, as Daksh told, I think they should be participative in any transformation event that is happening in the company, because then they will be able to give time to work which will make them most productive. See, unless tomorrow humans are also not required, which will actually mean that there's no point of us sitting here. uh, Work of HR is going to be very, very important. I feel actually the work which HR got designed as a function is now going to happen, because they will be spending time with people who are in the company, speaking with them, being their counselors, being their coaches. That is what are the softer skills which they should build, to connect with people on the floor, to connect with people, who are, say, if you are running a factory, you are responsible for industrial relations, all of it will become very important. And that will only happen when their time from workflows and classic work will go down, and hence they should push for transformation, so that their time gets freed, and then they can actually work with the people in the company, build the culture aspect. And I see most companies, in fact, not even most, I see none of the companies doing even a decent job on this. So there are some examples that we keep hearing, organizing a lunch for employees or free lunch, etc., is not culture. It is basically understanding what your people are going through. How do you solve their problem? Businesses will go through ups and downs. And I think the human aspect, the psychological aspect will need to come in. That is where HR, because if I'm as an employee, I will not want to speak with a bot for that. I will want to speak with a person. So while there would be a lot of interesting AI movies like Her, people will want to speak with a human being there. And I would want all HR to do those courses and understand behavioral aspects. But first, do your currently finish or automate the basic work which they are spending time.
I think beautiful points. I really need to thank you and Dakshdeep a lot for sharing such insightful perspectives. I think now it's time for us to move to the Q&A that our viewers have already put up in the Q&A section. So the first question is how to use AI in the HR professional. Okay, that's a very broad question. I think you've kind of summarized this. Maybe you want to kind of
I think
just
it depends
narrow it
on
down
which
as a, yeah.
uh, I think it depends on which stage the organization is. Um, for sure, as a good starting point, and whosoever has asked this question, ideally, the cherry picks ideally could be your help desks, your systems wherein employees reach out to the HR in terms of their queries, their concerns. That could be the easiest pick ideally. Um, the second one, and obviously the next area is now, it depends on which area would you want to invest in. I mean, starting from a recruitment till the exit of an employee, you can have every process which can be impacted. In recruitment, we covered on certain things like your could be your job description, recommendations of roles, could be your JD skill match, could be candidate comparison and figuring out which seems to be more suited. On the leave side of it, you may have predictions looking at trends for leaves to say, uh, around this season or around these dates, who are the probable employees who may go on for a leave. There could also be integrations wherein, let's say, if a person drives in for a sick leave, you may want to have certain suggestions in terms of the nearest doctors around, what happened, and stuff like that. On payroll side, you can, uh, let's say, uh, automate the entire tax element, recommendations in terms of what could be your best available tax saving plans. These are sort of things that bots can help you out doing. Um, when it comes to career recommendation, it can also be clubbed with your transfers and promotions. Ideally, systems can guide you. You can have these AI bots who will recommend that these are probable employees for your next promotion, looking at their performance, their skills, how they have grown. Now, there are, if this scenario could be somewhere around, let's say, a manufacturing organization where people work in shifts, a system can also recommend that these are the probable people. Let's say if somebody has an immediate absenteeism that comes across, the system can recommend who's the best probable employee who can fit into that role. Uh, and the entire journey, ideally, on to your exit part, we anyways covered on the retention element. on the entire talent management, the entire personalized experience in terms of your career path and the roles that comes in. I think the entire space can be done. It depends on how and what do you want to automate and how do you want to start.
Absolutely. That question was asked by Nayanika. Nayanika, I'm sure you have enough inputs for your query. So the next question is asked by Adapa. That is how AI can help in implementation of PMS lifecycle. Want to take it, Sandeep?
No, no, Pratap. Sorry, can you just repeat that question once again, Rohini,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me?
sure. It says how AI can help in implementation of PMS lifecycle.
So, see, PMS basically starts with the goal setting part. Currently, goals are set either looking at a function and it basically cascades from top. So there are company goals and then there are leadership goals and then it comes down to a different function. And most times I have seen some because of pressure or because of this thing at the bottom level goals are just put in ki उसमें टीम मैनेजमेंट भी डाल दो ये भी डाल दो वो भी डाल दो and many times people will also just put it and then during the appraisal time they will just put some rating on it. Hence, the most in most companies the discussion is also pretty average where they will say हाँ ठीक है यार ये सब छोड़ I'll talk about the core part which is this. I think so. Goal setting, while the company goals and the business goals will continue to be what they are currently, which will either be top line, bottom line, or a certain market share. But how do you make it nuanced for a middle manager and the team under them? I think that is something which will come in, and it has to be very specific. For example, someone who is managing or not managing a team currently, or versus managing a team, someone who is and little bit aspirational in nature. So all of that entire generation of that content for that goals is something which can happen via AI. And then progressive checks, which are currently every company has a 6 months check-in, but again it is again mostly like a stamp based process ki haan kar diya hai, So I think how do you make it more nuanced where on a monthly level, quarterly level, the employee is getting feedback on it. And it will not, for example, as a manager, I have suppose 10 people under me, so I'll also do tuck, tuck, tuck because I have to fill 5 parameters and I have to write this thing. It doesn't work like that. To a certain employee, I will just want to say 1 point, to other one, I'll want to say 1 point right now. Assuming rest are fine. So how do you get that message there? And then what can be done during the year to correct it? For example, it might involve a course, it might involve a behavior change, it might involve taking initiative, all of it. So how do you help that employee in that area and to move so that by the time the year end comes you are not suddenly giving feedback. So that is something which can completely change.
I think
Perfect. I
couple of
think,
areas
thank you. Yeah,
just to add up to what
sure.
Sandeep was saying. I think there are two very basic use cases that we have solved within our HRMS offering. One is cascading of the goals entirely. Now the CEO goals are clear and your roles are identified within the organization. Uh, I think the AI can just cascade goals from top to the last level, so it removes a lot of administration effort that the HR takes and goes through, right? Because people have to do a lot of follow-ups to create those things. That's one. Second is the biggest challenge that HR faces today is people don't know how to create goals. You will have some vague statement coming in somewhere or the other. When you go and read those KRs, you'll sometimes start laughing to figure out what the person is trying to achieve. So I think if you know those keywords that what you want to do, at least how we have sorted it, the system will help you create smart goals by itself. You don't have to put in a lot of stuff. You just have to say, that's my role, that's what you intend to do, and the system does it for you. So I think these are two key areas that in performance that people can look up to solve for.
Absolutely. Great points. Thank you so much, both of you. I think the next question is from Neha R. Any particular course would you like to test to stay ahead of AI. I think for this, I would definitely recommend AI certs, AI plus HR certification. I'm going to send you the details and the coupon codes that we are running. Please do take a look at it. Apart from that, I mean, if there's anything that you may want to recommend, you could for anything specific in HR.
I think that this depends. It's a very broad question. Ideally, you can't have. I mean, honestly, you don't have a end to learning, right? It never ends. The more you learn, the more you read, the more you get to know. I mean, even on the same topic, if you go through contents on two different websites, you'll for sure realize that you would have still learned a 10% delta more, and the delta still remains the same. I mean, I'm not a big reader though, but I only go through the content which is related to my professional work, and I've seen whenever I've done it, uh, it gives me a different insight altogether. So for sure, I think AI Certs is one great platform that you can go through your respective domain. Could be HR, could be on blockchain, could be on anything ideally that you would want to do. I think that's one thing that can happen. The other things, I think first is you need to understand how do you see if it's about see AI. It's just not a book, right? Had it been just a book or a novel kind of a thing, everybody would have done it. It's a field that's emerging. If you would want to invest idly into it, it's about continuous learning. You have to invest good amount of time, understand the basics, understand how the world is going, understand the nuances behind it. And courses don't end up. I mean, you'll have these big universities like an ISB or a Kellogg running a lot of these courses as well. Go ahead and do it. I think a lot depends on your pocket, a lot depends on the content and the way of methodology of teaching. So what works for you, ideally go ahead and pick up those courses and do it.
Yeah, I think
Perfect.
one point
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also want
that's
to add
true.
there. Yeah, I think any course, I think AI Certs course, please, it's a great starting point to build your journey. And then, as you know, Daksh also told earlier, please be curious about what is happening. That is something which you should keep doing because it will be a starting point. And B, I think, be very, very thorough in what your function is. And if you are in HR, I talked about be very good on the H part of HR, and that is where your learning, your understanding of AI, and being a great coach, being a great counselor, I think is something which will help you on the second part. Uh, there is no substitute to that part, which is not going to go away anytime. So be very good on that, and I think that is where you should do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your inputs, Sandeep and Daksh. Neha, I think you must take a look at our website. You can make a start here and keep learning as it was suggested. Well, the next question is how is the scope of HR technology in future? I think we kind of spoke about it. The whole webinar was based on HR technology and AI. But if you have anything briefly, if you want to help Sushmita understand this better.
So I'll just take 5-10 seconds. I covered. So there will be new HRMS platforms that will be coming up. There will be new way of doing surveys. There will be new way of gathering employee what is going through their mind. Uh, so tech is basically, trying. A lot of young entrepreneurs will try and build the next part of it. I think you will see a lot of new companies coming in, which are currently not there, and that is going to happen on every aspect, whether it is. So HRMS is the biggest area, which is the biggest market right now, and payroll, etc. Everything is pretty standard and quite boring. So you will see a lot of action in that area.
I think one data fact, and this is, I think, by the early 2024, I read it. The HR tech landscape, all right, it was valued, I think, around $1,000 million. That's the span. You'll find multiple players coming in and running in uh, their their products across. I think with time to come, and that's a very interesting conversation. And you would see that a lot of things are working in terms of consolidation, right? You see a lot of consolidation happening at telecom players, right? Idea and V coming in now. There is something that Reliance and Airtel are also doing in jointly. I think a lot of this will also happen, but I think that's a bit of uh, a far-fetched kind of a future. You'll have a few dominating players, perhaps the rest either getting closed or getting acquired or getting merged into one or the other organization. But yeah, I think the scope is huge. We uh, you If you look at the growth stats for any of the HR tech player, I think they are doing fabulous. The HR tech companies are growing at a rate of good 50 to 60% year on year, which means that obviously there is a lot of scope. And I think there's a very interesting stat. If you go and speak to a CHRO, right, uh, two or three out of five rather would always come back and say that I am unhappy with my current HR tech. Uh, People could be using an Oracle, people could be using success factors, they'll be using ideally the best of their tools ideally, but I think the fact remains that nobody's happy. Three out of five people still say. It still means that 60% people are dissatisfied despite of the fact that they would have invested lot many hours and lot many rather months and days in getting that system implemented in the organization, right? But that's the fact. I mean, that's how the world is moving. You'll find these things coming in because innovation is the key. The more you innovate, the more attraction you get in the market, and I think the more customers uh, take over to you.
That's right. I think the last question for today is, one of the participants is asking uh, to repeat, please tell one more time the article on data cascades. I think I spoke about data cascades. They want you to just repeat.
Yeah, yeah. So the article is
Yeah.
called Data Cascades in High Stakes AI. If
Okay.
you want, I can
You can
maybe
type it on the
type it.
chat box. I
Yeah,
think that would help. Yeah, perfect.
yeah.
I think great session today. I think we did touch upon very important topics that can help a whole lot of people here. I think it's a wrap for today's session. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a heartfelt thank you to our exceptional speakers, both Dakshdeep and Sandeep, for sharing their valuable insights, and to all of you for your engaging participation as well. This discussion highlighted the transformative power of AI in HR while underscoring the need of ethical practices and a people first approach. Before we go, be sure to connect with AI Certs for more resources, updates, details on our upcoming events. Do visit our website. We look forward for welcoming you for future sessions. Thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful evening or a day ahead. All of you, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks, Dashchip and Sandeep. It's a great opportunity to host you both.
Thank you,
Thank
Rohini.
you.